Hi, I'm Jane Brecken from Unlimited Potential Coaching, and I am here today with Dr. Rosie Kuhn to do part 3 of Deep Recovery, which is a coaching workshop we're doing in Brainerd, Minnesota on August 13th and 14th. I'm going to jump right in and introduce Rosie and start with questions. Hi, Rosie, how are you?
Hi, Jane. Nice to see you.
Good.
I'm looking forward to our time together in August in Brainerd.
So am I. So Rosie, this third part that we're going to discuss today, I feel needs to be around a little bit more explanation of how the context of recovery and how is it that we're viewing recovery as a process, or is it something that is completed and that we can now say we are recovered from these addictions? Can you speak about that?
Sure. So if we use the analogy of, for instance, getting in a car accident where we've shattered bones and hips and backs and heads, but we decide that we're going to get recovery. We don't want to just recover to a point where we're still managing pain. We want to, most of us want full recovery where we're not in any pain, we're not having to medicate ourselves in any way or do anything that is oriented towards being something other than fully recovered. So from my perspective, it should be the same, and I believe it is the same for us in relation to our mental challenges or our emotional challenges, our addictions, our dependencies, that we have the capacity to fully recover so that we're fully present and fully capable of making choices based on our highest truth and our highest good. Most of us are managing based on emotional woundings or physical woundings from the past, but mostly emotional woundings, abuses, violences, betrayals, neglect, to one degree or another. And we're all trying to compensate for what occurred to us in the past. So this is very much like having been wounded in the past by a car accident or something, and we have the capacity to fully recover ourselves so that that emotional wounding doesn't trigger a need or a requirement to medicate or compensate with substances or food, substances as in drinking or food or whatever it is we're taking, or medication or drugs, or compensating through emotionals processes. Quite often, people who are feeling powerless will compensate for their powerlessness with anger. If we feel helpless and hopeless, quite often it'll trigger anger. So anger becomes a go-to instead of actually feeling the sense of vulnerability or powerlessness. So those are just a few of the ideas of that are oriented towards a full recovery. I want to say one more thing, though, is that as we're growing and evolving ourselves personally, this is an ongoing process, as you said, a process that will occur and will continue until the day we die, because as we age and we evolve, circumstances happen, and we have to be with that. So we can be fully recovered, if you will, and then we're stepping into a next evolution of ourselves where things come up and we be with that, but we have a greater capacity to choose than ever before. And that's what this workshop of deep recovery is about.
Nice. So the second question I have is around the multiple addictions that you talk about, that it's pretty clear that most of us live with multiple addictions. Can you say more about what those addictions might be and why you think most of us as human beings, it relates to all of us as human beings?
First of all, our cultures, most of them teach us and train us to live within the dictates or the authority of that. So, and most of our cultures are fear-based. So we think in terms of, I have to be afraid. I have to be afraid of losing my dependency, or they're going to kick me out of the house, or I'm going to lose my job, or I'm not going to have any money, or my health is going to deteriorate. So there's this ongoing fear based orientation. So number one, uh, 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 creating strategies to avoid fear or avoid rejection, if you will, is the first thing we learn. And quite often in families, children learn to either be highly effective at being, what's the word I'm looking for? They're high achievers. Others train themselves to be loners and isolate. Others learn to be funny and playful and the class clown. So these are ways that we choose to deal with the anxiety of childhood. Quite often, children are in the environment of what their parents are creating that doesn't make sense. And so we learn quite often, like, how do I compensate? What do I do with this feeling inside of myself? We don't even know what that is. This is at a nonverbal level. We feel anxiety. Some children will cry. Makes sense, right?
It does.
Or some children get very quiet. Like, if I cry, I'm going to get hit or something's going to happen. So I'm just going to stay quiet. So we learn very, very early how to compensate for the anxiety, the senses in our bodies that we don't even have words or language for. And so it becomes so natural to keep creating life from these places that we've learned way before we can even imagine.
And so how do they turn into addictions, if you will, in terms of emotionally or in our thought life? And how does that become an addiction then through these strategies?
Well, that's a great question. And the one of the movies I love came out about 15 years ago. It's called What the Bleep. And for me, it's one of the best descriptions of what's occurring in our biochemical world, our reality, as we're functioning all day long. And the addiction is to the chemicals that create a sense of relief. Now, if I'm having anxiety, I start to feel a sense of out of controlness, which may be just a sense of powerlessness, but people feel out of control. They may start, they want some of that, whatever chemical in their mind, their brain, in their system, to help them feel better. So that might be anger, okay? And so they go, rah, and the chemical goes in and they go, I feel better. So now I'm angry. I could be angry, but now I'm not allowed to be angry because, let's say I'm married and my husband doesn't like my anger, so I start eating, okay? So I start eating when I get angry because I'm not allowed to feel my anger, and I'm not allowed to feel my sense of powerlessness or out of controlness, so I'll eat, okay? So that's just 3 layers, but we're dealing with anxieties and choosing the mechanisms. See, we're choosing all the time. This is the place of self-empowerment, which is so brilliant. We're choosing all the time, how am I going to compensate with this emotion or this feeling or this sense of out of control? I was working in a corporate environment with about 8 or 9 VPs, and about half of them were able to acknowledge that they go to control freak, and that their employees, their direct reports, would say, yeah, she's a control freak. But that control freak is only a way of dealing with the anxiety and the sense of, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm out of control. So we go to something. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, and I totally understand how someone can go to some alcohol or some drugs because they know it works to whatever,
That's right.
accomplish what it is that they want to get out of their fear or get out of their.
That's right.
Yeah, interesting.
That's right. So that's why we're talking about what's the source of, I keep going up here. So, but what's the source of the anxiety which has me drink? What's the trigger that has me drink? And they can say, well, my wife yells at me, or the boss did this, or there was a lot of traffic today, or whatever it is. It's like, I'm restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontent, I'm going to drink. Okay. So But what's the source of that restless, irritable discontent? We can say it's the boss, it's my wife, it's my husband, it's the traffic. But what is it about the boss, the traffic, the wife? What is it about that that has me choose to experience this place of restless, irritable discontent?
Yep.
I feel powerless. I feel frustrated. I can't, the traffic is just makes me crazy. Well, what is it? So what is that? I'm out of control, or I'm in, my impatience comes up. So we start to look at, well, what's the source of that? Not as it's out there, the traffic, it's what's happening inside me. And the more that I'm willing to explore that as an investigation, as a scientist, if you will, like what's happening inside me that has that be so, then we're able to choose to look at that and go, oh, I get it. I see it. Now I can with some support or some time and patience, we can change that and we can come to that place of full recovery.
Interesting. So are you saying that so most of us need some sort of guidance in the beginning to just ask the right questions to get to the source of what's really going on?
Yeah. And that can come through books, that can come from podcasts or video casts like what we're doing, that can come from workshops, that can come from personal one-on-one coaching, it can come from fellowship programs, because the 12-step program, regardless of which addiction you're looking at, addresses every element of what we're talking about. But we're taking it to a deeper level, if you will. That's why, thus, deep recovery.
Right.
We're asking the question to the next level, because again, the 12-step programs, the 12 steps cover so much of this, especially the taking inventory. What are my thoughts that drive me to distraction? What are my emotional self? This is inventory. What's the emotions that I'm engaging in that makes me want to do something that's not in alignment with my highest truth and my highest good?
Right. And I think that's what I love most about, what we're going to be doing here is incorporating, the loveliness, the richness of a 12-step recovery program for folks and deepening that here.
That's right.
And
yes,
they work well together. Thank you so much, Rosie. So again, this workshop is taking place August 13th and 14th in Brainerd. We hope you'll join us. If you have questions, want to talk more, please contact me at jane@myunlimitedpotential.com. And thank you, Rosie, for being with us today. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, Jane. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.